Have you ever thought about what the world would look like if evolution had its own private playground? Well, that's pretty much Madagascar. People often call it a living laboratory, and you can see its story written in some of the most unique creatures and plants on the entire planet. So that really gets us to the big question for this explainer. Why do people call Madagascar a real-life lost world? What is it that makes this one island so fundamentally different from, well, everywhere else? All right, let's start with a number that just sounds wild. 90%. That's how many of Madagascar's native land and freshwater animals, we're talking mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, are endemic. That means they exist here and literally nowhere else. And believe it or not, that 90% is just the average. If you zoom in on just the reptiles, the number jumps to a staggering 98%. I mean, think about that for a second. Almost every single native snake, lizard, and chameleon on that island is a one-of-a-kind evolutionary masterpiece. This isn't just about the animals either. The plant life there is just as unique. An incredible 82% of its vascular plants are found only on Madagascar. So the big takeaway here is we're not just talking about a few special species. We're talking about an entire one-of-a-kind ecosystem. So, how on earth did this happen? To figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock. And I mean way, way back. Our story starts in deep time, when the map of the world looked totally different than it does today. You see, Madagascar wasn't always an island. It was once tucked right into the heart of the supercontinent Gondwana. About 160 million years ago, it started to peel away from Africa, still attached to India. Then, around 90 million years ago, it broke off from India too, finally setting it adrift in the Indian Ocean, a lonely evolutionary outpost. But being isolated was only half of the equation. That same asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, it also took out most of the ancient life on Madagascar. Suddenly, the island was an empty stage, a clean slate just waiting for a whole new cast of characters. So you have to realize, it was this perfect storm of extreme isolation followed by a mass extinction that really set the scene. Okay, so if the old life was gone, how did the new life even get there? Well, the answer is a pretty amazing process called overseas dispersal. The ancestors of today's lemurs and chameleons didn't have a land bridge to walk across. Nope, they most likely floated across the Mozambique Channel, maybe hanging on for dear life to giant rafts of trees and plants that were ripped from the mainland during storms. It was like a biological lottery, and only a very lucky few ever made it to shore. So now, we get to see what happens next. Once those few lucky survivors arrived, millions of years of complete isolation turned the island into this unique living laboratory, which led to an absolute explosion of life. And the scale of that explosion is it's huge. We are talking about over 11,000 unique species of plants, more than 400 species of reptiles, over 350 species of amphibians, and get this, scientists are still discovering new ones all the time. The island's humid forests on the eastern coast especially became this hotbed for incredible diversity. Let's just focus on the plants for a second. A lot of the biggest plant families on Earth are here, like orchids and the coffee family. But the endemism rates are just off the charts. 93% of the native coffee-related plants and 84% of the orchids are only found in Madagascar. It's like seeing familiar plant families, but with a completely unique Madagascar twist. And then you have the animals. Look, evolution didn't just create new species here, it created entire groups of animals found nowhere else. I'm talking about the whole superfamily of lemurs, the super weird and diverse tenrecs, the island's own unique carnivores, and even an entire order of birds, the mysites. It is truly like a parallel universe of evolution. But this ancient, incredible story has a very new and very dramatic chapter. For millions of years, all this evolution just chugged along, undisturbed. Then, in what amounts to a blink of an eye in geologic time, humans showed up. And that kicked off a really recent and rapid transformation. Remember that geological timeline we saw, the one measured in millions of years? Now look at this one. While there's some evidence that humans were around for thousands of years, big, large-scale settlements didn't really kick off until about 1,000 years ago. And the impact? It was immediate. And it was devastating, especially for the island's biggest animals. This new arrival didn't just hurt the animals, it completely reshaped the land itself. That ancient landscape of forests and native grasslands was cleared out at a shocking pace and converted to farmland, making way for things like rice paddies and grazing land for introduced zebu cattle. And the result of all that transformation, plus hunting, was catastrophic. The island's incredible megafauna. We're talking gorilla-sized lemurs, the massive elephant birds, and dwarf hippos. They all just vanished, wiped out in only a few centuries after surviving for millions of years. Gone. So this brings us to today, and why all this history is so important. Madagascar isn't just some museum of evolution. It's a living library, a treasure trove of biological secrets that are absolutely vital for all of us. So just how valuable is this library? Well, think about this. Researchers have documented 1,916 plant species in Madagascar that have a direct use for people. That's almost 5% of all useful plants known to science, all packed onto this one island. And the ways they're used is just astounding. You've got everything from 38 native yam species that provide food, to over 200 endemic medicinal plants, to 65 native species of coffee that could hold the genetic keys to creating stronger crops around the world. This biodiversity is like a living bank of solutions. Maybe the most famous example of this is the Madagascar periwinkle. It's this unassuming little flower that contains these powerful alkaloids. Those alkaloids led to the development of some of our most important drugs for treating things like childhood leukemia and Hodgkin's lymphoma. A cure for a global disease hidden away on this one remote island. And all of this leads us to a really urgent point that the researchers themselves are making. We are in a flat-out race to find and understand all this incredible biodiversity before it's gone for good. Because honestly, we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what it holds. And that leaves us with one final urgent question. The story of Madagascar is this incredible tale of deep time and explosive evolution. But now it's facing these unprecedented modern threats. So in this race against time, what other wonders, what other potential cures or foods or solutions are we going to lose before we even have a chance to know they exist?